On tap, Foster's Lager. G'day, mate. I'm James Knott, and this is your Better Beer Authority. Today on the show, we're taking a trip down under. Or are we? Foster's Lager is a brand under Foster's Group Limited in Melbourne, Australia. Foster's is an adjunct lager with 5.5% alcohol by volume. It is available in over 150 countries and is the largest selling Australian beer brand in the world. It has become famous in America for its popular Foster's, Australian for beer, slogan, but really isn't very popular in Australia at all. The top selling beer in Australia? Victoria Bitter, which is also owned by Foster's. Today's beer was brewed under contract in the US by oil can breweries in Albany, Georgia or Fort Worth, Texas. The true marks of distinction for this beer are its 25.4 ounce oil can packaging and its clever marketing, which ties it to all things Australian. Mark, give us the rundown on this beer.
I mean, it is definitely an American adjunct lager. There's nothing that really gives this beer any kind of competition to my palate, but I mean, you're gonna taste it and you're gonna think, hey, this is just an Australian version of the BMCs that we traditionally drink here in the U.S. Even though this was U.S. brewed, as you so succinctly put it. But it's just interesting that it tastes very much run of the mill in contrast to the other BMCs that we have. Initially, when I smelled it, it kind of had a little bit of weediness to it, kind of like a yucky Hefeweizen or something like that. But typically, it is a typical adjunct lager, I'd say. Yeah. Okay,
Joey, this is an adjunct lager. So is Budweiser, Miller. Is there a reason to go to this over those beers?
James, I think if somebody does go to this over those beers, it's either they have something against those other beers or they're looking to step outside of the norm.
Like the same people that go for Heineken, right?
Yeah, just because.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the marketing's great for this beer. I mean, there's nothing taste-wise or aroma-wise or the way they make it is going to knock anybody's socks off. It's, the marketing campaign. It's catchy, and you can talk in an Australian accent when you drink it. But, I don't think anybody's going to pick this over that and be like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than Budweiser, I have to have it.
Okay. Scott, you were recently in Australia. Were you able to find this beer there? And is this a big beer in the Australian beer scene?
The only thing that makes it big in the Australian beer scene is the can. Other than that, no, it's not very big there. They're not really big fans of Foster's at all. I think the only people I saw drinking it when I was there, I've been there a couple times, and both times it was non-Australians. So Americans, Brits, just expats. No one Australian that likes it or drinks it. They're more apt to pick a Budweiser or Heineken, something like that.
What Australian beer would you go for?
If I had to pick out of all of them, probably Cooper's or maybe VB's. I like VB's a lot. I had a lot of that when I was there, though, and kind of drank myself under with it.
Mark, can you remember any of your Australian beers?
Well, what's interesting is when I was, I lived in Guam, and they had Victoria Bitter there, and I remember trying it, and I was like, oh, this is from Australia. That's cool. But then when I actually went to Australia, it was really neat because they had, the 4X, they have Victoria Bitter, and to my recollection, I don't really remember seeing Foster's there either. So, but it's interesting over there how much more expensive the American beers that you're used to seeing actually are, like twice as much, just because those are the imports there, which I thought was crazy.
What's your rating on this one, Mark?
For me, this beer, I'm gonna run it in as a 5. There's nothing terribly notable about this beer. There's nothing bad about it either. I mean, as far as your adjunct lagers go, this is just fine. I'm not going to rave about it, but I think it's certainly just another option for people to drink. It's cheap. It's not a BMC, but it's just something that's out there. 5.
Joby, you're the one who brought this today. What inspired you to bring Foster's?
James, coming from my BMC background, I thought we should stick with something that can be gotten at pretty much any local grocery store, gas station, local beer joint, and we've been doing a lot of bigger end beers lately, so I wanted to get something normal yet on the cusp of different. So for me, James, this is an easy drinking beer. Any BMC person out there could drink this, pick it up, drink a couple oil cans, and be fine. You know, this is not going to be the gateway beer into the craft beer scene, no. But again, like I said, the novelty of the beer can or the oil can representation of how they present this beer, I think that's pretty cool. You know, it's a novelty thing. It's like, I don't know, if somebody would, you know, has a boot, you drink out of a boot, that's pretty cool. Well, it's different. So I think
it's
like
arguable to say that it's not just necessarily a novelty thing. It's kind of a thrifty thing. I mean, as a lot of our viewers know, we've done some, you know, crap beer as opposed to craft beer on the show. And the appeal to doing some of the lower end adjuncts or, you know, your thrifty beers, that you get a fine lager or a fine beer that it doesn't taste like garbage, but it's cheap enough, you know. In my book, this is just another option of thrift beer. In my book, it doesn't really bring anything extra to the table. It's not like, I wouldn't say, oh, I mean, are you a BMCF guy? You know, it's not like that for me, but I'm just saying it's another option if you want to step outside of your traditional, you know, big American brewery and just try something else, you know.
Joby, what's your rating on this one?
I'm going with a 6, James. Like I said, it's not bad. I can definitely make a session with it. Anytime I'm feeling hoppy and want to act like a kangaroo, I'd pick this up.
Is this a good session beer for rugby? I'm just kidding. What's your rating?
No, I think so. It could be. You know, I think that we're missing the mark a little bit on this, or at least not talking about one thing that's kind of blatant and obvious. We talked about before when we did the Bud, Miller, and Coors comparison that Joby's the only one that really picked the beers, and we were pretty much blanked on. I got none. He got one. Whoever was on maybe it was you. And it really just went to show that marketing really has a lot to do with swaying our opinion. It's true with Foster's by far, if you think about it, because every beer I had in Australia, whether it be Bogues, Cascade, VBs, Coopers, any of them were much better tasting than Foster's, in my opinion, in most Australians' opinions. However, as you can see by the stats that you even pointed out, Foster's is the best-selling beer and sold in 150 different countries. I would bet that half the viewers, or more than half the viewers that are listening, have never heard of Bogues, Cascade, even Victoria's Bitters, or Coopers. And all of them, I believe, are sold here.
Well, I'm willing to bet with a certain bankroll backing your brewery, you're going to be able to have a bigger distribution. You know, when you think about the merger between Budweiser and InBevCo, I mean, that put Budweiser into so many more countries than it had before. And so it's not just necessarily a novelty thing or even marketing, which I think that has something to do with it. I mean, to me, it really comes down to just your bankroll, part of the big beer war, you know, because some of these larger corporations, they try and muscle out the craft scene because that's how beer goes.
But there was a push to distribute this in Australia, and it did not go well. They pulled back.
Yeah, it's all about the marketing, in my opinion, because Coopers is here. You can get Coopers in almost any craft shop. You'll find Coopers, and most people have never heard of it. So it's marketing, and yeah, maybe part of it has to do with money, but that's not the point I was talking about. I'm just talking about the fact however you get to the marketing, whether you have loads of money or not, it is
I'm
marketing.
not disagreeing with you. I mean, marketing has something to do with it, but I think big bankroll, big distribution.
Scott, what's your rating?
I give Foster's a 6. I think it's a pretty solid beer. I mean, it's nothing that I would go out of my way to buy every time I'm at the store, but I can see myself picking it up every once in a while, especially if it's available over maybe some BMCs out there.
Yeah.
Get the oil can.
It's true. I would have to go for the oil can, which, we keep talking about the oil can. Someone cheaped out on buying all oil cans. I'm not going to point out who.
I didn't see him there.
Yeah. We went to that really special beer store, the Kroger's.
Krogers?
Foster's. On a side note, there's no S after Kroger.
My little quick thing is, I think it has a nice flavor. I think that has a little bit more flavor than, say, a Miller Lite or Bud Light. I would tend to go towards this if this was in the cooler with the others. Foster's Lager gets a 5.7 on the PBA scale. What's your favorite Australian beer? Do you think of Foster's as an authentic Australian beverage? Let us know in the comments section. Thanks for watching. I'm James Knott, and this is your Better Beer Authority. G'day.
Better Beer Authority. Better Beer Authority. Better Beer Authority.